The GSI, Geospatial Software Institute Conceptualization Project, has engaged a number of partners. I'm listing a good set of examples here, cutting across academia, international communities, government, industry sectors. And we do have several representatives of our partners here with us who are going to be contributing to our Geospatial Fellows program. And I'm also going to invite self-introductions. I do know, Nadine, you're here. Could you start?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I'm here actually on behalf of George Percival, who everybody's familiar with. The Open Geospatial Consortium is very happy about this partnership here. And as we're all trying to find how we can help the community beyond just the geospatial on solving the COVID crisis and future pandemics, I'm very happy to represent OGC here. And thanks again for everybody looking forward to this hour.
Thank you very much, Nadine. Jared Bales, representing Quasi, cannot be here at this moment. So we also have an active partnership with the Quasi, looking to the potential impacts of COVID-19 on water systems and dynamics. Next, Colleen, I think you're here.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Denis. I'm a senior geography researcher at the AAG. Thank you, Xiaowen, for creating this opportunity in such uncertain time. This is really great to see. I'm here to represent our members at the American Association of Geographers and make sure that they contribute their expertise to this important effort. So, hi, everyone.
Thanks, Colleen. Ned, are you in the Zoom?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ned English. I'm a senior research methodologist at NORC at the University of Chicago, or NORC. We do applied social science research, and so I'm very pleased to be a part of this effort and initiative and to try to bring the applied social science angle.
Thanks, Ned. And Diana.
Hi, my name is Diana Sinton. I'm the Executive Director of UCGIS, the University Consortium for Geographic Information Science. We are very glad that we've been able to be part of the conceptualization project for GSI for a while, and very happy about being able to participate with this group and others with regards to the summer schools that we've been able to offer through this activity.
Thanks, Diana. We will be discussing the summer school activity we did. We will build on the success of the summer school we ran last year, and we'll learn more in that regard as we go through the rest of the slides. Thank you, Diana. Just a little bit of background about NSF Software Institute. There are 3 funded software institutes already. One is in the domain of molecular sciences. Another one is in high energy physics. The third one is in the broad context of advanced cyber infrastructure, specifically Science Gateway. And these programs are normally funded at the level of $15 to $25 million for the initial 5 years, and tend to focus multidisciplinary cross-cutting research and education. As I'm preaching the choir, geospatial clearly is one of those areas, has very close connections with software, and software plays a very important part in what we do. And that's one of the aspirations for us to conceptualize GSI. And the GSI is having a major focus on geospatial data. And as we know, to a large degree, geospatial data poses tremendous computational scientific challenges due to the complexity of a number of factors. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. The data part is always dynamic, and in fact, each one of us here is a sensor of geospatial data production. And of course, there are important issues such as privacy and ethics, for instance, involved in the fight against COVID-19. And there are some conventional challenges also involving uncertainty and multi-scale representations and so on. But again, if you address all these different dimensions of complexity in solving complex problems as COVID-19 posed to us, we could imagine this is a very much of a huge challenge to geospatial software and a variety of communities who are contributing to their expertise to such a challenge. So geospatial software, broadly speaking, is a kind of software for transforming geospatial data into information, knowledge, and intelligence, but also serving the purpose of fusing rapidly changing multidisciplinary science and technologies through geospatial theories, principles, foundations, and methods. The community has really come together through the process of conceptualizing Geospatial Software Institute. And this is the mission derived from a number of community activities. The transformation of geospatial software, cyber infrastructure, and data science across many fields has been recognized as exciting, as critical to revolutionize diverse discovery and innovation by enhancing computational transparency and reproducibility. The vision is to establish a sustainable social and technical ecosystem to enable geospatial-inspired innovation and discovery. The conceptualization process has also derived and distilled 5 goals, really focusing on these 5 elements. Number 1 is reproducible, transparent, and scalable geospatial software. And secondly is geospatial digital workforce. Third is ethical and open geospatial software. And the 4th one is structured guidance for computational reproducibility. And the 5th one is high performance and data intensive geospatial software. So along these 5 elements, we will leverage into our Geospatial Fellows program, and we will share with you how we would plan to achieve this leverage. And at the same time, we hope to engage the Geospatial Fellows to help the community refine these goals. If we put the goals and the mission and vision together, is really this diagram that drives the interplay between critical spatial thinking and digital transformation, driven by a variety of scientific and domain science challenges that are increasingly data and computation and collaboration intensive. And advances of these science drivers and research challenges are highly dependent on data science capabilities and the spatial computational theories and methods that are in turn built upon the advances of cyber infrastructure and cyber GIS. And geospatial software really is serving a critical role of integrating and synthesizing across these 2 interplays into these specific domains. From this diagram, these are really 4 tiers of domains. Now for our Geospatial Fellows program, as you see, this is the short summary of the research and education topics. Certainly we're not just limited to this set of research and education topics in the context of COVID-19. We would welcome any other topics that are centered around geospatial analysis and modeling approaches, and to understand how geospatial fellows could work together, collaborate to enhance each other's efforts on the fight against the COVID-19 crisis. As I mentioned earlier, this Geospatial Fellows program has built on the success of summer school in 2019. You would perhaps be shocked if last year we were able to tell you this is the reality this year. But the summer school was a partnership between the Geospatial Software Institute Conceptualization Project and AAG and the UCGIS. And it took place at the University of Illinois on the campus of Urbana-Champaign. Again, this was the happy group gathered in July. We really miss that time doing, considering the situation we're in this year. But thankfully, we have evolved the idea of this summer school gathering into a more sustainable activity. Now we call it Geospatial Fellows, and we will tell you how we learn from the summer school and then really expand that summer school experience to be a broader community process, which we hope the Geospatial Fellows program will unfold and help the fellows and the community to achieve the sum is better than the parts for tackling the COVID-19 crisis and advance interest in science drivers. For the summer school, the folks came from different institutions across the country. It's a simple map. And now I'm inviting Diana to tell you a little bit about our experience on geospatial digital workforce. Diana.
Thanks, Shaowen. Yeah, just a few comments about this. The important part that about the geospatial workforce that the summer school supports so strongly, and that type of experience is that in those situations you're working in a team situation. Every team is working on a different particular problem. All of the problems themselves are unique, but they're taking advantage, each team, of CyberGIS capabilities, practicing as they learn to implement best practices of geospatial data science, building Jupyter notebooks in a situation where you're really learning about the way to design collaborative tools through interdisciplinary teamwork and really geocomputational thinking. That was a big part of what we were doing. Critical spatial thinking and geocomputational thinking, really within a context of CyberGIS. And that's what the future digital geospatial workforce is about, all of those elements together, and nothing like the summer school. And now the way that this particular Geospatial Fellows program is being designed really replicates those particular, that pathway towards the geospatial digital workforce that we want to get towards.
Thanks, Diana. Another important aspect of the summer school was our emphasis on ethical and open geospatial software, and Colleen was really a leader in this regard. Colleen, could you say a few words about your experience?
Yeah, so one of the other goals of the GSI, which Shaowen showed a slide earlier on with these 5 bullet points, one of them is to promote a culture of ethical and open geospatial software. So to achieve this, this is not a small feat. To achieve this, the development of open geospatial software will need to be driven by diverse communities. For example, expertise of software developers will need to be complemented with expertise from scholars with a deep understanding of the underlying geography and the underlying communities the research questions at hand are impacting. Questions about the ethical use of these data, think about contact tracing in the context of COVID-19, or the biases that certain analysis like AI can perpetuate, and how do we address those? How do we not perpetuate biases that we are not meaning to perpetuate? Are communities fairly portrayed in maps that are generated by software today? we are bombarded with millions of maps every day and have a glimpse in, sort of have our nose into all of these communities we don't really know that well. And is that fairly portrayed? So these questions need to be addressed, not after the fact, not after the development is done, but during the software development process. So true integration driven by these diverse communities for responsible, ethical, and open geospatial software. Part of this effort will require bridges between communities in terms of language, in terms of education, and so forth. So it's not a small project.
I certainly agree. Thanks, Colleen. Another important aspect of our GSI conceptualization is to understand the importance and implications of reproducibility and replicability in geospatial related work, broadly speaking. And this is a recent report coming from National Academy of Sciences consensus study. And we used the terminologies and some of the recommendations from this report to tailor our summer experience into the problems the summer school participants were solving. But also we would take computational reproducibility as a major element of the Geospatial Fellows Program. Again, these are two specific goals, as mentioned earlier, as part of the Geospatial Software Institute conceptualization process. And we would invite the Geospatial Fellows to refine these two specific elements in the context of achieving computational reproducibility for geospatial approaches to COVID-19 research and education. Now, one of the characteristics of the Geospatial Fellows Program is to democratize access to advanced cyber infrastructure and cyber GIS from the perspective of geospatial discovery and innovation to support the fight against the COVID-19 crisis and challenges. As examples of advanced cyber infrastructure, we have a campus level cyber resource called Virtual Roger, which is one of the first geospatial supercomputers. And the other is an NSF-funded national program of advanced cyber infrastructure resources called XSEED. And through cyber GIS software modalities, for instance, summarized on this slide, our geospatial fellows would get access to such big data and high performance computing capabilities and resources. But the question is really, now we see wide recognition and adoption of code and data sharing. The focus on computational reproducibility has driven us to go beyond merely just data and code sharing, but rather on structured guidance and best practices for achieving computational reproducibility. So one of the approaches we experimented was Jupyter Notebooks and the integration of CyberGIS with Jupyter Notebooks into a holistic environment for scientists and users. And this is a simple architecture diagram for CyberGIS Jupyter, and from the left that represents the user's environment accessing CyberGIS Jupyter capabilities from your browsers, and from the right side of this slide you see the heterogeneous cyber infrastructure resources cutting across high performance computing and cloud support, and in the between is the middleware and Jupyter Hub capabilities, again integrated to simplify the access for scientists and users to directly focus on scientific problem solving without having to be concerned about how to access sophisticated cyber infrastructure and cyber GIS capabilities. So we would want such capabilities to be the basic building blocks of a hub, referred to the geospatial hub, for geospatial fellows to develop their own Jupyter notebooks that have access to advanced cyber infrastructure and cyber GIS without becoming an expert of cyber infrastructure and cyber GIS. And these notebooks will be shared and will be peer reviewed and vetted, and also connected to publications and data sets. And this will become an environment for collaboration for different fellows teams to understand the synergies and complementarities of their different research and education activities. And in the end, we hope to create a common environment of knowledge nuggets. And these nuggets will serve as the frontiers for the community to learn how to achieve computational reproducibility and transparency for geospatial approaches to the challenges of COVID-19. Specific community engagement processes we plan for the geospatial fellows. Number one is regular collaborations supported through virtual meetings and technical training for understanding how to access cyber infrastructure, work with big data resources. And we will organize webinar series to highlight the progress made by the geospatial fellows and their cutting edge research and education efforts. Toward the end of the Geospatial Fellows program, which is a one-year program, we will conduct a 2-day virtual workshop to invite community leaders and geospatial fellows to come together to synthesize the experience and findings from the geospatial fellows experience. We've received a lot of questions about eligibility of becoming geospatial fellows. Any researchers and educators as faculty members across all career stages at US institutions, they are eligible to be PIs for geospatial fellows, or any principal investigators of research groups, primarily in the US institutions, but also for international participants. We would open to any proposals, but also emphasizing the primary funding will be allocated to the fellows in the US. Graduate students are not eligible to serve as principal investigators, but we understand each and every one of the geospatial fellows are likely going to have team members involving grad students. I already mentioned the focus is going to be on the institutions in the US. And another thing to emphasize is we are not expecting the fellows to have prior experience with the cyber GIS, advanced cyber infrastructure, or computational notebooks. So we plan to have adequate training to get the fellows up to speed to be able to take advantage of the big data science capabilities and advanced cyber infrastructure we think we could harness for the advances of the fellows' work. In terms of the budget and support, each geospatial fellow will be awarded between $2,000 to $6,000. Again, this is anticipated to be a year-long process. So this is a modest support for each fellow, and the focus is on compensating for the time and efforts of the fellows themselves. Most fellows will likely be paid with honorarium. And if fellows have other needs, not having preference to be paid or receive honorarium, we would likely need to visit the situation case by case, and also because of certain visa issues, even for folks in the US, to be paid through such a program would need to be handled case by case. So, so we have staff resources to help the fellows to figure out what would be the most appropriate ways of receiving this support. And we've already handled a good number of questions between the announcement of the Fellows Program now. And if you have any questions in this regard, feel free to directly follow up with me. On top of the monetary support, the fellows and their team members will be granted access to CyberGS X, which is a platform for organizing CyberGS distributor notebooks and also sharing associated metadata knowledge around the CyberGS X distributor notebooks. In a sense, you would share and improve upon each other's notebooks and to the best degree to also understand how to integrate different notebooks together to form more powerful workflows. If needed, we could also support travel, but given the uncertainty posed by COVID-19, it's hard to anticipate how much travel support you need. We would hope the travel support would enable better collaborations among the geospatial fellows. We would not allow for travel support just to go to conferences, given that most of the conferences these days become virtual. There's a template of a proposal we encourage the geospatial fellows applicants to use, and the submission deadline is the end of this month, just in a week. This is a quick summary of the activities of the geospatial fellows, as well as a brief timeline. Essentially, on August 21st, we will notify geospatial fellows who will be awarded, and then we'll have announcement toward the end of August to share with the communities who will be selected. And then between September this year and the next August, we will have a year-long program to have regular calls to coordinate geospatial fellows to share each other's progress and foster collaborations among the fellows. And we will organize on average monthly community webinars highlighting the fellows' work as well as community leaders' work. We would invite other community leaders to join the geospatial fellows to understand what would be additional collaboration opportunities. And we will run tutorials based on the fellows' work as well as our past work in the conceptualization part of the GSI. For instance, to share with the community how to work with CyberGS X and Geospatial Hub. 3 high-level key deliverables of the Geospatial Fellows Program. Number 1 is a set of CyberGS distributor notebooks developed and contributed by the fellows for conducting cutting-edge COVID-19 research and education enabled by advanced cyber infrastructure and geospatial software. The second deliverable is the Geospatial Hub itself for easy organization and sharing these notebooks as computationally reproducible and scalable geospatial analysis and modeling software modules. And we think this hub is going to foster collaborative research and education. And it's critical to have such a hub to help with the fight against COVID-19, given that we know how much data resources, geospatial data resources in particular, are available out there, and how active the geospatial communities have been engaged in COVID-19 research and education. But we recognized there is a limited effort on coordinating this diverse and powerful activities, especially with a particular focus on build on each other's work and enhance collaborative activities to achieve bigger goals. So the third deliverable is a white paper addressing the roadmap of geospatial software for advanced COVID-19 research and education. And this white paper is going to be synthesizing the learning of the geospatial fellows and also this experience and process over the next year. And the learning from this white paper is going to be incorporated into the final version of the strategic plan of the Geospatial Software Institute conceptualization. And that plan is expected by NSF to be submitted by before next September. So your inputs, and really speaking, all community inputs are greatly appreciated and very welcome. So for this webinar, we have this Google Doc. I trust you are active, typing your thoughts and notes into the Google Doc, which we will discuss. And my slides here are going to be available after this webinar. And we hope to also have the recording available as soon as possible. Again, for the draft of the strategic plan for the Geospatial Software Institute, you could use that link, the middle link, to access. And then if you have any feedback, please feel free to follow up with me or any of the steering committee members introduced themselves today, and or even those not introducing themselves, they're not here, you should feel free to follow up with them. And our Twitter hashtag is GSI Future. So, and with this picture we had last summer, again, we certainly miss very much those moments, being able to mingle together. But this Geospatial Fellows program could build on the momentum of the summer school and the lessons and experience we've learned from the summer school. And we hope to take advantage of what we've learned from the summer school and to sustain the community engagement process into the Geospatial Fellows, which we hope to benefit through this program, and certainly hope to help coordinate the fellows to achieve the sum is bigger than the parts, and to most importantly help with the fight against the COVID-19 crisis. So I want to acknowledge particularly NSF, the red color. The first award is for the GSI conceptualization grant, and also our partners here today represented AAG Quasi and NORC, OGC, and UCGIS. So we greatly appreciate their contributions. With that, this is the presentation part. And my email is on this slide, and we would be happy to follow up with you if you could not get your questions or comments covered today for the remaining part of the webinar using my email. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we'd be happy to take any questions, comments. I'm gonna also look at the Google Doc.
Chauvin, there have been a lot of questions in the chat. I've tried to answer many of them as I can, but I might have missed, and I think we have people capturing those in the Google Doc as well. But those on the call, if you have questions, feel free to directly type them up on Google Doc as well. It's easier to follow.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the Google Doc. The first question is, are undergraduate students welcome to participate? Short answer is yes. And I see already an answer to that. Certainly undergraduate students will not be able to serve as PIs. So just to break the ice for that question, I do see a few other questions nobody have responded. Are there particular types of projects that GSI is looking for? Not really. We want to emphasize cutting edge research and education. That's really the primary evaluation factor to make sure in your proposal to highlight your related work built on your research programs you've been mobilizing. It's important to connect what you do and what you propose to your expertise. So I also want to open the floor to everyone and to the steering committee members and to our partners. If you see any questions or you have any questions, feel free to chime in. So I'll pick up another question, which is, can a PhD student work with advisor as a PI and create a proposal as part of dissertation? Short answer is yes. And we do expect advisor to participate in the program. So it will not be productive if the advisor would be just a symbolic PI. Symbolic PI, I hope you would interpret the way not as productive for this particular program, because we would organize the fellows regularly and try to foster collaborations among the fellows. So in the case student, either grad student or undergraduate students would be working under advisors, we anticipate both students and the fellows are actively participating in the fellows' activities.
Xiaowen, this is Diana. I know you talked about, you described earlier about some of the different synchronous activities that we may have fellows do together through webinars and discussions. Could you just reiterate that a little bit? Because I know it might be interesting for fellows or applicants aren't necessarily expected to describe in ways that that they might, try to connect with other fellows at this stage. But maybe you could describe a little bit your vision for how some of the interactions might take place, the
That's a great
synergies.
question. Yeah, so we hope to foster synergies and also discover overlapping interest among the fellows. As you might have noticed, there are lots of geospatial research and education activities happening in the context of COVID-19. This is perhaps one of the most active areas of COVID-19 research and education, in addition to biomedical domains. But yet, it's kind of hard to know what other people's work is focusing on and the kind of the state of art. Only you could, for instance, get to learn through some virtual talks and publications, and hard to achieve more in-depth collaboration. So this regular communications and collaboration commons we envision to organize is to bring the fellows together to discuss their research and education progress, and to organize different research interests into themes, and from these themes to address commonalities and the differences. And then we also hope to form bigger challenges as we see the contributions from the fellows, whether we could formulate problems that would require multiple fellows to work together that would also be enhanced or enabled by data science and cyber infrastructure capabilities. So we anticipate these interactions to be a discovery process for the fellows. When we organized our summer school last summer, 2019, we had a structured process before the summer school to understand the interests and the potential projects by the summer school participants. So now we have 1 year for the fellows to exchange research interests, education ideas, and common overlapping activities. And by doing so, we see how geospatial data science, cyber infrastructure, cyber GIS would become some bridging factors that would allow these fellows to come together with their research contributions to tackle bigger problems. Did that answer your question or address your comment, Diana?
It did, thank you. And I think that that touched a little bit on one of the questions that's come in about describing how the projects collaborated last year. A little bit by matchmaking ahead of time, but a lot of individuals selecting in that situation projects that they had an interest in, and then the groups, the organizational entity, the organizers matching people to projects. And in this situation, people will still be working on projects independently, but there'll be some synergies that we can try to support when people describe the interests, when it's clear the interests that they have that come out through their applications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That was a helpful comment. As we will foster the collaborations and then enhance the computational knowledge of the fellows and democratize the access by the fellows to advanced cyber infrastructure capabilities and the cyber GIS Jupyter services, we will likely discover there might be bigger problems our project will not be able to handle. So in those cases, certainly we'll capture the nature of the problems in our strategic plan for the Geospatial Software Institute. But at the same time, we hope to communicate with NSF during this year-long process. If there are, for instance, more urgent work to be done, we would hope to be agile to formulate maybe smaller project proposals to NSF. I think that would be a perfect possibility for the fellows program to nurture collaborations that could be captured and supported and born out of this process that might benefit fellows, research, and education. So there's a technical question about CyberGIS Jupyter Notebook and the Geospatial Hub. So CyberGIS Jupyter Notebooks basically are Jupyter Notebooks integrated with CyberGIS capabilities. Geospatial Hub is taking such notebooks as building blocks for sharing, searching, annotating such notebooks, and for people to discover these notebooks, for linking these notebooks into more powerful notebooks and workflows. So the notebooks are individual building blocks of the Geospatial Hub, where the communities might use notebooks as a way of expressing their research and education progress. So the Geospatial Hub right now is a prototype. The conceptualization project of GSI would not make this hub as a full-fledged production environment, but the Geospatial Fellows will help specify the requirements for the Geospatial Hub and use the prototype to experiment what might be the desirable features for such a hub. If, for instance, we would get the Geospatial Software Institute funded in the future, and how this hub would work and serve the broader community's work. And certainly the COVID-19 is just one of the community's work examples.
Shawan, if I can highlight one of the questions, it was responded in the Google Doc, but one question was, do we need to outline how our projects will fit into the Jupyter system? And another question was about, could you please clarify what enumerate any geospatial software requirements for the hub? I think it's an important, these two are related and important questions about what is the prerequisite expertise or knowledge that is needed with computational notebooks, Jupyter system, and if they don't have any geospatial software requirements, if that's okay, if they can not enumerate any geospatial software. I think that's an important question.
Yeah, so that's an important question. The expectation there is your ongoing research and education are expected to have geospatial analysis and modeling approaches. So we would anticipate your ongoing work and proposed work to engage geospatial software one way or another. Now, what you plan to do, not necessarily based on your current knowledge, because recognizing the access to advanced cyber infrastructure might require training. So we will not anticipate the geospatial fellows already are well trained in the technical space. But there's an expectation that your proposed work will, one way or another, take advantage of geospatial software for your geospatial approaches to COVID-19 research and education. So there are, I think, quite a few questions. Let me pick up a logistical one. It's coming at the top of the chat box. But after this question, I should invite other members of our team to pick up more questions as Colleen did. So can you also highlight on the education component of the research? Certainly, yes, that's an easy one. Are graduate, undergraduate stipends acceptable expenses? Depends. This is what I refer to be a little bit complicated. For instance, if you have students are coming outside of the country, to be able to pay such students are dependent on their visas. So typically, we would prefer to compensate for the time and efforts of the geospatial fellows, the PIs. But if you really prefer to cover grad and undergraduate students directly, we will need to handle those cases one by one, because there's eligibility for paying the students and how to set up the pay for such students to be covered.
And I should emphasize, I guess we are answering many of these questions in the Google Doc. So please do look through them as well. So it's difficult to keep on the chat. So we are putting those things in the Google Doc.
Yeah, so the Google Doc, I saw both questions and answers are evolving pretty nicely. Thanks for your help, Anand and others, to directly answer those questions in the Google Doc or in the chat. I think you copy pasted out.
Yep. So one of the questions, I think this was which I think I did answer, but I just wanted to clarify, was in terms of the eligibility for academic staff and specifically postdocs. Sean, would you want to take that? I was thinking that it would be more on whoever is eligible to serve as PI for an NSF project is eligible to serve as PI here.
Yeah, that should be a safe answer. Typically, postdocs PI eligibility is institution dependent. As an example here at UIUC, postdocs by default are not eligible to serve as PIs for NSF grants. But I know some other institutions have different rules. So if your institutions allow postdocs to be PIs, we would be okay, but we need, in this case, maybe a short letter to back you up as PIs. So there's a question, will we be able to go through all the questions on Google Doc so that we can read them? Yes, we will.
Yes.
We will go through all the questions in Google Doc one by one, even if we will be running out of time here. The Google Doc link will be persist for the time of the Geospatial Fellows program. In fact, as we evolve the Google Doc, we will create a Q&A. So at this stage is mostly about the logistics of preparing Geospatial Fellows proposals, but this could be also in the later stage adapted into a broader Q&A document, FAQ, for how the fellows would work together. Any other questions folks have detected that would be worth direct response or discussion here? Anyone wanna unmute yourself to ask questions? I do see our bandwidth has no trouble for some direct talking. Geospatial folks are really friendly and kind and considerate. You're not jumping up to say things directly, but again, if you want to use the Google Doc, because the chat box will be gone after we wrap up this call. But if you want to use the Google Doc even after the webinar, you want to register or raise questions, we'll get through those questions asynchronously.
Sure.
So,
Dr. Wang, I have a question. I just wanted to, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for organizing this session first. Just a quick question. Would you, I'm a postdoc here, would you support instruments and equipments as well to conduct research, primary data collection, especially with GPS and remote sensor kind of a thing?
short answer to that is not.
Okay.
Yeah, so supporting acquisition of equipment and devices is a sophisticated process going through different institutional layers. So we've decided not to provide that support.
If I may jump in, I have a question. For the Flowship program, since you mentioned that the aim of the Flowship is to cover a one-year project, if there is a case that there is a sort of committee engagement project going on that I would like to draw up on this Flowship unit, how flexible is the timeline? Can we deliver some outcomes sooner? Can we adjust the timeline to some ongoing work?
Yeah, it is a 1-year process because it is not only the contribution by a particular fellow, but also it's a commitment for the fellows to work together. So I think for your own project, it's okay if you could achieve what you propose less than a year, but your participation in the program will be 1 year.
Thank you.
So there's a question about what about those of those folks in industry. We would welcome proposals from industry similar to proposals from academic institutions. For industry folks, if you want to propose a project as you would be committing yourselves as geospatial fellows if funded, we would likewise compensate for your time and efforts.
I had a question about, you mentioned that fellows are required to participate in collaboration commons and technical training and webinars and so on. Is that in addition to the amount of time that we would spend on our research, our actual research itself?
It could be part of your efforts you would estimate to be part of your proposal.
Mm-hmm. And so do we have to also account for those webinars and things that we are participating?
Yeah, you may include the time commitments for the webinars and the training you would likely need to be part of the fellows program.
Okay, thank you.
The recording of this session, yes, it will be available. I cannot tell you exactly when this will be available. The slides will be available early next week or even during this weekend. The recording, this Zoom session, we might need to do some post-processing. We did not start at the beginning of the Zoom meeting, but I think that's okay. We are committed to make this recording available. So for the members of the steering committee and also for our partners, do you have any questions, comments, and thoughts to share?
Not from me. I think it's been a very useful session and we've had some very useful questions, and hopefully this has started a very active process.
Thank you, Mike. Any other folks from partners and the steering committee side? Any final questions from the participants? If not, thanks very much again for your participation. And we look forward to receiving your interesting proposals and wish you all the best for the rest of the summer and going forward, make desirable progress on getting the COVID-19 crisis conquered. Good weekend.